The massive alien ship appeared above Earth like a dark moon. Its hull was made of something that looked like black crystal, and it stretched for miles in every direction. Behind it came dozens more ships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. The fleet hung in space like sleeping giants, blocking out the stars. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Terran Defense Station, watching the alien fleet through the main screen. Her hands were steady, but inside she felt her heart beating fast. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. The moment they had all been preparing for. The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded like broken glass scraping against metal. "I am Admiral Zethkri of the Vorthak Empire, speaking for the Hegemony Council. You will listen to our words and obey." Sarah stepped forward. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We're listening." The main screen flickered and showed the alien commander. Zethkri looked like a giant insect made of living crystal. His body was tall and thin, with 4 arms that ended in sharp claws. His face had no mouth, but somehow the words came from him anyway. His eyes were like black diamonds, cold and empty. "Your species has been found," Zethkri said. "You have built ships. You have spread to other worlds. This cannot continue without proper control. The Hegemony Council rules all intelligent life in this galaxy. You will now join this rule." Sarah kept her face calm. "What does that mean exactly?" "You will surrender all military forces. You will give 60% of all resources to the Hegemony. You will send 1 million of your people each year to serve in our workforces. You will move your population to the worlds we choose for you. You will follow all laws we make for you." The bridge fell silent. Sarah could hear her officers breathing behind her. Some of them were young, barely out of the academy. Others had gray hair and had served for decades. All of them were thinking the same thing. "And if we refuse?" Sarah asked. Zethkri made a sound that might have been laughter. "No species refuses. Look at our fleet. We have 200 ships above your world. Each one can destroy your cities. We can turn your planet into burning rock in 1 hour. Your 12 star systems would be empty before your next sunrise." Sarah nodded slowly. "I see. How long do we have to decide?" 7 of your days. This is more time than most species need. Most surrender immediately when they see our power. You humans seem stubborn, but you will see reason soon enough." The alien admiral leaned forward. "I have given this same message to 847 species. All have chosen to live under hegemony rule rather than die in useless resistance. You will make the same choice." "We'll give you our answer in 7 days," Sarah said. "Wise. Do not make us wait longer. Do not try to run. Do not try to fight. We have sensors that can track every ship you have. We know about your colonies, your mining stations, your trading posts. All of them are watched. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction." The screen went black. The alien fleet remained in space above Earth, waiting. Sarah turned to her command staff. Their faces were pale but determined. Lieutenant Commander James Park spoke first. "Admiral, they have us completely outgunned. Our entire fleet is maybe 50 ships. They have 200 just here and probably thousands more across the galaxy." "I know, James." Sarah walked to the tactical display. It showed Earth surrounded by red dots, each one representing an alien warship. "Dr. Rodriguez, what do our scientists say about their technology?" Dr. Maria Rodriguez stepped forward. She had been studying alien technology since first contact 50 years ago. "Their ships are at least 200 years ahead of ours. Their weapons could punch through our best shields like they're made of paper. Their armor is something we can't even scratch with our current weapons." "So we can't fight them?" asked Commander Lisa Wong. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. She looked at each of her officers, these good people who had served humanity faithfully. Then she smiled, and her smile was not pleasant. "Did any of you really think this day would never come?" she asked. "Did you think we could spread across the stars and never meet someone bigger and meaner than us?" The officers looked at each other. Several of them were starting to understand. "Admiral," said Commander Park slowly, "are you saying we've been preparing for this? James, your grandfather fought in World War III. My great-grandmother died in the colony wars. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. Did you really think we'd stop just because we found aliens?" Sarah walked to a secure panel on the wall. She placed her hand on a scanner and spoke clearly. "Chen, Sarah, Admiral, Terran Defense Force, authorization code, Black Sky 77 Alpha." The panel opened. Inside was a single red button. For 50 years since we first detected alien signals, our best minds have been asking one question. What if they're hostile? What if they're stronger than us? What if they want to make us slaves? She looked at the button. We decided that no matter what, humanity would never kneel. Not to anyone. Not ever, Dr. Rodriguez gasped. The Black Protocol. I thought it was just a theory. It's real, Maria. Every ship we've ever built has hidden weapons. Every colony has secret defenses. Every human in space has been trained for war. We've been preparing for this moment for 5 decades. Commander Wong shook her head. But Admiral, even if we have hidden weapons, we're still outnumbered 4-1 just by their fleet here. And they have the rest of the galaxy behind them. Sarah's smile grew wider. Lisa, you're thinking like they think. You're thinking that we'll line up our ships against theirs and fight a fair battle. That's not how humans fight. That's not how we've ever fought. She pressed the red button. Across human space, from Earth to the farthest colonies, every human ship received the same coded message. In hidden compartments, weapons powered up. In civilian ships disguised as cargo haulers, Marines checked their gear. On mining stations that looked harmless, massive railguns turned toward space. The message was simple. The Black Fleet flies at midnight. Sarah turned back to her officers. Send a message to Admiral Zethkri. Tell him we'll have our answer ready in 7 days. What answer will we give him? Asked Lieutenant Park. Sarah looked out at the alien fleet hanging over her world. 200 ships that could destroy everything she had ever loved. 200 ships crewed by aliens who thought humans were just another species to be conquered and enslaved. We're going to give him the same answer we've given every bully, every tyrant, every would-be conqueror who ever threatened humanity, she said. We're going to give him war. Outside, the alien ships waited in the darkness of space. Their crews were confident. They had done this hundreds of times before. No species had ever refused their offer. No species had ever been stupid enough to fight back. But then, no species had ever been human before. And humans, as the galaxy was about to learn, did not surrender. The message spread through human space like wildfire. On every ship, in every station, on every colony world, the same coded signal arrived. The Black Fleet flies at midnight. Captain Maria Santos read the message on the bridge of her cargo ship, the Esperanza. To anyone watching, it looked like a simple transport vessel carrying medical supplies to the outer colonies. But Maria smiled as she read the words. She had been waiting for this message for 20 years. All hands to battle stations, she announced over the ship's communication system. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Her crew of 15 moved quickly through the ship. They had practiced this routine hundreds of times, but never for real. In the cargo bay, fake medical containers split open to reveal missile launchers. The ship's hull plates slid aside to show hidden weapon ports. The Esperanza transformed from a harmless cargo ship into a warship in less than 10 minutes. All across human space, the same transformation was happening. The Lucky Strike, registered as a mining vessel, revealed torpedo tubes hidden in its ore processing bays. The passenger liner New Hope opened hidden armor plates and extended gun turrets that had been disguised as observation decks. Even small scout ships carried weapons that could punch holes in much larger vessels. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in a secret bunker deep beneath the surface of Mars. She was the head of the Black Protocol, the woman who had spent 30 years preparing humanity for this war. Around her, screens showed every human ship in the galaxy. Red lights turned to green as each vessel confirmed they were ready for battle. Status report, she said to her aide, a young man named David Kim. All major vessels have confirmed activation. We have 47,812 ships ready for combat operations, from dreadnoughts to scout ships to converted civilian vessels. Elena nodded. And the special packages? Delivered and armed. Every major trade route, every jump point, every strategic location has been prepared according to the plan. Elena had been a young scientist when humanity first detected alien radio signals 50 years ago. She remembered the excitement, the hope that they would finally meet other intelligent species. Then the first contact had come, and it hadn't been friendly. The Zelthari had been explorers, much like early humans. But they had been running from something. Before they died, they had managed to warn humanity about the hegemony, about how the great powers of the galaxy treated younger species, about what happened to civilizations that couldn't defend themselves. That warning had changed everything. Humanity had spent the next 50 years preparing for war while pretending to be peaceful explorers. "Dr. Vasquez," said another technician, "we're receiving reports from our observers near the alien fleet. They're not moving." "They think they're safe," Elena smiled coldly. "Of course they do. They've done this 800 times before. Every species they've met has either surrendered immediately or fought a traditional space battle and lost quickly. They have no idea what they're dealing with." On Earth, Admiral Chen was meeting with the leaders of humanity. President Harrison looked tired and old, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Admiral, I want to be clear about what we're doing here. If we fight, millions of people will die. Maybe billions. Are we sure this is the right choice?" Sarah Chen had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. "Mr. President, if we surrender, humanity will cease to exist as a free species. They'll scatter us across the galaxy, use us as slave labor, and breed us like cattle. Our children will grow up as property of alien masters. But if we fight and lose, our children won't grow up at all," said General Martinez, the head of ground forces. "Then we don't lose," Sarah said simply. Secretary of Defense Williams shook his head. "Sarah, be realistic. They have technology we can barely understand. Their smallest ship could probably defeat our largest battleship. Tom, you're thinking about this wrong. You're thinking about fighting them the way they expect to be fought. Ship against ship, fleet against fleet, like some kind of ancient naval battle. That's not how we're going to do this." Sarah activated a holographic display that showed the solar system. "Look at their fleet. 200 ships sitting in formation like they're on parade. They're waiting for us to line up our ships and charge at them like knights in some old story." She manipulated the display, showing the alien ship surrounded by what looked like empty space. But space isn't empty. Not anymore. We've been preparing for 50 years. Every asteroid, every piece of space debris, every navigation beacon in human space has been weaponized. The display showed hundreds of tiny red dots appearing around the alien fleet. Asteroids that had been hollowed out and filled with explosives. Satellites that looked like communication relays but were actually guided missiles. Mining equipment that could be turned into mass drivers capable of accelerating chunks of metal to incredible speeds. "We're not going to fight them in space battles," Sarah continued. "We're going to hunt them, like wolves hunting elk. We'll hit them where they don't expect it, when they don't expect it, with weapons they don't know exist." President Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "And our colonies? Our people on the outer worlds? They're all part of the plan, sir. Every human settlement has been built with defense in mind. Every colonist has been trained. Every ship has been modified. The aliens think they're dealing with a primitive species that just learned to fly between stars. They have no idea that we've been planning this war since before most of them were born." Meanwhile, aboard Admiral Zethkri's flagship, the alien commander was reviewing reports from his scouts. The hegemony had detailed information about human military capabilities. Or so they thought. "Status report," Zethkri commanded. His aide, an insect-like creature called Sectar, consulted his data pad. "The humans have 53 military vessels total. Their largest ships are primitive, barely capable of interstellar travel. Their weapons are chemical explosives and simple energy beams. They pose no significant threat. And their defensive capabilities? Minimal. Their stations are barely armored. Their colonies have no orbital defenses. Their industrial capacity is limited to basic manufacturing. Admiral, this will be over in hours once we begin the attack." Zethkri was pleased. "Excellent. When the 7 days are complete and they refuse our generous offer, we will destroy their military assets quickly. Then we will demonstrate our power by destroying one of their colonies. The rest will surrender immediately." But Zethkri was wrong about almost everything. The hegemony intelligence was 50 years out of date, based on observations of early human space flights. They had no idea how much humanity had changed, how much they had prepared, how much they had hidden. In the depths of space, Captain Santos finished her ship's transformation. The Esperanza no longer looked like a cargo vessel. It looked like what it really was, a hunter-killer designed to destroy ships much larger than itself. She opened a communication channel to her crew. "Listen up, everyone. For 50 years, our people have been preparing for this day. Every human who ever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Every person who ever dreamed of exploring the galaxy. Every child who ever wanted to be free." She paused, looking at her crew. They were teachers and mechanics, farmers and engineers. Regular people who had volunteered to risk everything for the chance to stay free. The aliens out there think we're going to surrender. They think we're just another species that will bow down when they show us their big ships. They're about to learn what humans do to bullies. Maria Santos had been born on Earth, but she had spent most of her life in space. She loved the freedom of traveling between the stars, the excitement of seeing new worlds, the hope of building something better for her children. She was not going to let aliens take that away. In 3 days, we give them our answer, and our answer is going to be delivered in the language that bullies understand best. She smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Violence. Across human space, 50,000 ships were preparing for war. The Black Fleet was ready to fly. The 7 days passed like a countdown to doomsday. Admiral Zethkri waited above Earth, confident that the humans would see reason. His fleet remained in perfect formation, a demonstration of overwhelming power that had worked on hundreds of other species. He was wrong. At exactly 7 days after the ultimatum, every human ship in the galaxy powered up their weapons and sent the same message on all frequencies. Molon Lub. Zethkri had to look up the ancient human phrase. When he learned it meant come and take them, he was more puzzled than angry. What could these primitive creatures possibly do against the might of the hegemony? He was about to find out. The first blow came at Proxima Station, humanity's furthest outpost. A convoy of 5 human cargo ships was traveling toward the station when they encountered a hegemony patrol. The alien commander, Sub-Admiral Krathnok, activated his communication system to demand their surrender. Human vessels, you will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your species has refused the Council's generous offer. You are now considered hostile. The lead human ship, the Peaceful Trader, responded immediately. Understood. We're shutting down our engines now. Krathnok was pleased. At least some humans had sense. He watched as the cargo ships seemed to power down and drift helplessly in space. His 4 warships moved closer to begin boarding operations. That was when the Peaceful Trader opened fire. The cargo ship split apart like a flower blooming, revealing a hidden warship underneath. Missile launchers that had been disguised as cargo containers fired a wall of torpedoes. The ship's hull panels fell away to show heavy armor and gun turrets, but the Peaceful Trader wasn't alone. The other 4 cargo ships were also transforming, revealing themselves as heavily armed warships. Within seconds, 5 human vessels were pouring fire into the alien patrol. Krathnok's flagship took 12 direct hits before he could even order his shields raised. The other 3 alien ships fared no better. The humans had achieved complete surprise, and their weapons were far more advanced than hegemony intelligence had suggested. How is this possible? Krathnok screamed as his ship's armor began to fail. They're supposed to be primitives. The human response came from Captain Jake Morrison of the Peaceful Trader. Surprise, ugly. We've been waiting 50 years for this party. The alien patrol was destroyed in less than 5 minutes, but that was just the beginning. All across human space, similar ambushes were taking place. Ships that looked like harmless civilian vessels revealed themselves as deadly warships. Mining stations suddenly sprouted massive railguns that could accelerate chunks of metal to incredible speeds. Even passenger liners became weapons of war. Admiral Zethkri received the first reports with disbelief. This cannot be accurate. Check your sensors again. But the reports kept coming. Human asteroid mining operations were revealed to be hidden military bases. Communication satellites turned out to be missile platforms. Even space debris was weaponized. Chunks of metal that had been floating harmlessly for years suddenly activated guidance systems and slammed into hegemony ships. The humans weren't fighting like any species the hegemony had ever encountered. They didn't line up their fleets for honorable battle. They didn't try to match ship against ship in fair combat. Instead, they fought like pack hunters, using every dirty trick they could think of. On the mining station Series 7, Commander Lisa Wong watched alien ships approaching on her sensors. The Hegemony Task Force consisted of 12 warships, more than enough to destroy what appeared to be a simple mining operation. All stations, prepare for Plan Omega, Lisa announced. She had been waiting for this moment her entire career. The mining station looked helpless as the alien ships closed in. Its only visible weapons were a few small defensive turrets, barely enough to fight off pirates. The hegemony commander probably thought this would be easy. He was wrong. When the alien ships got within range, Series 7 revealed its true nature. The entire asteroid had been hollowed out and turned into a fortress. Hidden gun ports opened along its surface, revealing weapons that had been taken from the largest human battleships. The mining equipment was actually a collection of mass drivers that could throw chunks of metal at nearly the speed of light. But the real surprise was the asteroid field around Ceres 7. What looked like ordinary space. Rocks were actually guided missiles, each one the size of a small ship. When Lisa gave the command, hundreds of these fake asteroids lit up their engines and streaked toward the alien fleet. The hegemony commander tried to retreat, but it was too late. His ships were surrounded by what had seemed like empty space but was actually a carefully prepared trap. Within minutes, his entire task force was destroyed. The news of these victories spread quickly through human space, but Admiral Chen wasn't celebrating yet. She knew the real test was still to come. The hegemony fleet above Earth was 10 times larger than any force humanity had defeated, so far status report she requested from her command center. We've engaged 17 hegemony patrols across 8 star systems, reported Commander Park. 15 complete victories, 2 tactical withdrawals. Our losses are minimal. 3 ships destroyed, 12 damaged. And their response? They're pulling back from forward positions and consolidating their forces. Admiral Zethkri has requested reinforcements from the Council. Sarah Chen nodded. This was expected. The hegemony had never faced serious resistance before. They would need time to adapt their tactics. But time was something humanity could use too. Begin Phase 2, she ordered. Phase 2 was the real demonstration of human creativity in warfare. If Phase 1 had been about revealing hidden weapons, Phase 2 was about using those weapons in ways no civilized species would ever consider. Captain Santos received her new orders while her ship was hiding in the shadow of a gas giant. The Esperanza had joined up with 12 other converted cargo ships to form a wolf pack. Their target was a hegemony supply convoy traveling between star systems, but Santos wasn't planning to attack the convoy directly. Instead, she was going to use it to send a message. The hegemony supply ships were massive, each one the size of a small city. They carried food, fuel, and ammunition for the alien fleets. They were also heavily defended by escort warships. Santos waited until the convoy was passing through the Newton system before springing her trap. But instead of attacking the ships, she attacked their cargo. Using precision missiles, the human wolf pack targeted specific containers on the supply ships, not the fuel or ammunition. That would have destroyed the vessels. Instead, they targeted the food shipments. The containers split open in space, spilling thousands of tons of alien food into the void. But the food wasn't wasted. It had been treated with a special chemical developed by human scientists, a compound that would make any alien who ate it violently sick for weeks. The hegemony crews would recover their food and assume it was still safe to eat. After all, it had only been exposed to vacuum for a few minutes. They had no way of knowing that the humans had contaminated it with biological weapons specifically designed to target alien digestive systems. It was a form of warfare that no civilized species would consider. It was also incredibly effective. Within days, hegemony ships across the sector were reporting massive crew illness. Entire fleets were forced to withdraw from combat operations because their crews were too sick to fight. Admiral Zethkri finally began to understand what humanity truly was. These weren't primitive creatures who had just learned to fly between stars. They were something far more dangerous, a species that had spent their entire history learning how to kill each other, and had now turned that knowledge toward killing aliens. They fight without honor, he reported to the Hegemony Council. They use deception, biological weapons, and tactics that violate every convention of civilized warfare. The Council's response was swift. Then we will show them what civilized warfare can accomplish. Destroy them all. But as Admiral Zethkri prepared to launch his attack on Earth, he received more bad news. Human raiders had struck deep into hegemony space, attacking targets that should have been completely safe. Somehow, human ships had appeared in the home systems of 3 different alien species, causing panic and forcing the hegemony to redeploy ships for defense. The humans weren't just defending their own territory. They were taking the war to the enemy, and they were just getting started. The war that the hegemony expected to last 3 days stretched into 3 months. What should have been a simple conquest had become a nightmare that reached into every corner of the galaxy. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Shadow Runner. As it drifted silently through the Vorth home system, his vessel looked like a piece of space debris. a chunk of destroyed ship floating aimlessly through space. But inside, Morrison and his crew of 20 were preparing to strike at the heart of the hegemony. "Target confirmed," whispered his navigator, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "Vorth Industrial Complex 7, just like intelligence said. 50 million aliens working in the orbital factories." Morrison studied the massive space station through his ship's hidden sensors. It was enormous, a city-sized structure that produced weapons and ships for the hegemony war effort. It was also completely undefended. After all, who would be crazy enough to attack the hegemony in their own home system? "Human beings," Morrison said quietly. "That's who." The attack on the Vorth Industrial Complex was just one of dozens happening simultaneously across hegemony space. Human raiders had penetrated deep into alien territory using a tactic that no civilized species had ever attempted. They disguised their ships as wreckage from previous battles. The hegemony had been fighting wars for thousands of years, and space was full of debris from old conflicts. Broken ships, chunks of metal, destroyed stations, it was everywhere, and alien sensors ignored it completely. They had no idea that some of that debris contained human crews waiting to strike. Morrison's ship fired a single missile at the industrial complex. But this wasn't an ordinary weapon. It was a psychological warfare device designed by human, military scientists to exploit the specific fears of the Vorthak species. The missile exploded in a brilliant flash of light that could be seen across the entire star system. But instead of destroying the station, it projected a holographic message in the Vorthak language. "You wanted war. Here it is. Humanity remembers. Humanity never forgets. Humanity never forgives." The message played on repeat for 6 hours before burning out. But the damage was already done. The Vorthak population was in complete panic. Their most secure system had been penetrated by humans who had traveled hundreds of light years just to deliver a threat. Similar attacks were happening across hegemony space. Human raiders struck at economic targets, communication centers, and propaganda facilities. They didn't try to hold territory or destroy military assets. Instead, they focused on breaking the alien will to fight. On the Zelthari homeworld, a human commando team led by Captain Elena Rodriguez infiltrated the planetary communication network. Instead of destroying it, they took control and began broadcasting human music on every frequency. But this wasn't just any music. It was a carefully chosen selection of human war songs, battle hymns, and funeral dirges. The psychological effect was devastating. The Zelthari had evolved from prey animals, and the human music triggered deep instinctual fears. Entire cities went into panic as the alien population heard sounds that their ancient genetic memory recognized as the songs of predators. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, Admiral Chen was planning the most ambitious operation in human history. The Hegemony Council had finally realized the scope of the threat humanity represented and was assembling a massive fleet to destroy Earth once and for all. "Intelligence reports confirm it," said Commander Park during the morning briefing. "They're bringing everything they have. Over 2,000 ships from across the galaxy. Admiral Zethkri will command the largest fleet in hegemony history." Admiral Chen studied the tactical display. 2,000 alien warships against humanity's total fleet of maybe 300 combat-ready vessels. By any reasonable measure, it was hopeless. "Recommendations?" she asked her staff. "We could evacuate," suggested Commander Wong. "Save as many people as possible and continue the fight from the colonies." "We could try to negotiate," said another officer. "Show them that the cost of conquest is too high." Chen shook her head. "No, we don't run and we don't surrender. We end this here." Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had been quiet during the briefing, finally spoke up. "Admiral, there is one option we haven't discussed. The Omega Protocol." The room fell silent. Every senior officer in the Terran Defense Force knew about the Omega Protocol, but none of them had ever expected it to be used. It was the final option, the last resort when all else failed. "Elena, the Omega Protocol would require us to sacrifice everything," Chen said slowly. "If we lose here, we lose everything anyway," Dr. Vasquez replied. "At least this way we take them with us." The Omega Protocol was the darkest secret of the Black Fleet project. For 50 years, human scientists had been developing weapons that violated every treaty and convention of civilized warfare. Biological weapons that could target specific alien species. Nanotechnology that could consume entire fleets. And at the center of it all, a weapon so terrible that humanity had hoped never to use it. "Begin Omega Protocol preparations," Admiral Chen ordered. "God help us all." As the human fleet prepared for the final battle, the hegemony was discovering just how dangerous a cornered human could be. Captain Santos, now commanding a squadron of converted cargo ships, had been conducting a campaign of terror in the outer systems. Her latest target was a hegemony prison ship carrying captured humans from the early raids. Santos didn't have enough firepower to destroy the massive vessel, but she didn't need to. Instead, she used a tactic that would have horrified any civilized commander. The prison ship's hull was breached in dozens of places by precisely targeted missiles. Not enough to destroy the ship, but enough to create a slow atmospheric leak. The alien crew had a choice: fix the hull or abandon ship. Either way, the human prisoners would be free, but Santos wasn't done. As the alien crew worked desperately to save their ship, she broadcast a message on all frequencies. "This is Captain Maria Santos of the Terran Defense Force. You took our people. You wanted to make them slaves. Here's what we do to slavers." The message was accompanied by detailed specifications for the weapons Santos had used, along with instructions for how to build them from common civilian components. Within hours, the information had spread to every human ship in the galaxy. The hegemony was learning that humans didn't just fight, they shared their knowledge of how to fight. Every tactic, every weapon, every dirty trick that worked was immediately copied by other human forces. The Black Fleet was becoming stronger with every battle. Admiral Zethkri received these reports with growing desperation. His original fleet of 200 ships had been reduced to fewer than 50. Reinforcements were arriving daily, but they were also being destroyed almost as quickly. "How is this possible?" he demanded during a conference call with the Hegemony Council. "They have inferior technology, smaller numbers, and limited resources. By every measure, we should have defeated them weeks ago." The voice of the council speaker crackled through the communication system. "You underestimated them, Admiral. These humans are not like other species. They do not follow the conventions of civilized warfare. Then what do you suggest we do? We end this once and for all. The Great Fleet is almost assembled. 2,000 ships, Admiral. The largest military force in galactic history. When it arrives at Earth, we will not offer surrender. We will not take prisoners. We will destroy every human ship, every human station, every human world. The species will cease to exist." Zethkri felt a moment of doubt. In his long career, he had conquered hundreds of worlds and defeated countless enemies. But he had never faced an enemy like humanity. They fought like demons, struck without warning, and seemed to grow stronger with every defeat. "And if they have more surprises waiting for us, then we will overcome them with pure force. 2,000 ships, Admiral. Whatever weapons they have hidden, whatever tricks they still haven't used, it won't matter. We will outnumber them so completely that victory will be inevitable." But even as the council spoke those words, they were wrong. Humanity did have one more surprise, one final weapon that they had hoped never to use, and Admiral Chen was preparing to unleash it on anyone who threatened her species. The final battle was coming, and it would determine whether humanity would remain free or disappear forever. But whatever happened, the galaxy would never be the same. The age of the hegemony was ending. The age of humanity was about to begin. The great fleet of the hegemony arrived at Earth like a storm of death. 2,000 warships stretched across space, blotting out the stars. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, representing the combined might of 5 alien civilizations. Admiral Zethkri stood on the bridge of his flagship, the voice of authority, and gazed at the small blue world that had caused so much trouble. In a few hours, it would be nothing but burning rock. "All ships report ready for final assault," his aide informed him. "The Council has authorized total destruction. No survivors." Zethkri nodded. The humans had fought well, he admitted privately. They had lasted longer than any other species in hegemony history, but courage and cleverness could only accomplish so much against overwhelming force. "Begin the attack," he ordered. The great fleet moved toward Earth in perfect formation. Their weapons charged, their shields raised, their crews confident of easy victory. What could 50 human ships do against 2,000? That was when Admiral Sarah Chen gave the order that changed galactic history forever. "Execute Omega Protocol," she said quietly from her command center deep beneath the surface of Earth. "All ships, All stations, all weapons, everything we have. Hold nothing back. The response came from 50,000 voices across human space. Acknowledged. Omega Protocol active. For humanity. The first sign that something was wrong came when Zethkri's sensors detected massive power surges throughout the Sol system. Not from human ships, those were too few to matter. The surges were coming from everywhere. From asteroids, from space debris, from the planets themselves. Admiral, his sensor officer reported with confusion in his voice, I'm reading energy signatures that shouldn't be possible. It's as if the entire star system has been weaponized. Zethkri was about to demand clarification when the first wave hit his fleet. Every piece of space debris in the Sol system suddenly came alive. Chunks of metal that had been floating harmlessly for decades revealed themselves as guided missiles. Asteroids that had been mined out generations ago opened up to reveal massive weapons platforms. Even the planet Mars seemed to shift. As hidden installations, across its surface fired weapons that had been building power for 50 years, but that was just the beginning. Admiral Chen had made a decision that no other military commander in galactic history had ever made. She had turned Earth's entire moon into a weapon. For 50 years, human engineers had been hollowing out Luna, installing weapon systems that drew power directly from the planet's core. The moon that had inspired human poets for thousands of years had been transformed into the largest gun ever built. When it fired, the beam was visible from light years away. The weapon struck the center of the Great Fleet with the force of a dying star. Hundreds of hegemony ships simply vanished, turned to plasma in an instant. Hundreds more were crippled by the electromagnetic pulse that followed. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished. She had one more surprise for the aliens who thought they could conquer humanity. Phase 2 of Omega Protocol, she ordered. Release the Black Fleet. From hiding places throughout the Sol system, ships began to appear. But these weren't the converted cargo vessels and mining ships that had been fighting the war so far. These were purpose-built warships that had been constructed in secret for 50 years. The Vengeance was 3 miles long and armed with weapons that human scientists had developed by studying captured alien technology. The Retribution carried a crew of 5,000 volunteers who had sworn to die before surrendering. The Justice was covered in armor made from materials that didn't exist on any periodic table. 50 dreadnoughts appeared from the darkness of space, followed by 500 cruisers, 2,000 destroyers, and 10,000 smaller vessels. The Black Fleet had been humanity's greatest secret, a force built with the resources of 12-star systems and hidden where no alien sensors could find them. Admiral Zethkri watched his perfectly organized fleet dissolve into chaos as human ships struck from every direction. These weren't the desperate raiders he had been fighting for months. These were professional warriors in ships designed specifically to kill aliens. How many ships do they have? He screamed at his tactical officer. I don't know, sir. Our sensors are being jammed. They're coming from everywhere. The battle for Earth became a slaughter, but not the kind the hegemony had planned. Human ships fought with a fury that terrified the alien crews. They rammed enemy vessels when their weapons ran out. They used their ships as guided missiles when their engines failed. They broadcast human war songs on all frequencies, turning space itself into a symphony of violence. Captain Santos, now commanding the dreadnought Esperanza's Revenge, led a charge directly into the heart of the alien formation. Her ship took massive damage, but she kept fighting until her vessel's reactor was about to explode. This is for every human who ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of freedom, she broadcast, as she aimed her dying ship at Admiral Zethkri's flagship. The explosion lit up space, like a second sun, but the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source. Commander Jake Morrison, the raider who had been terrorizing alien supply lines, had spent the last month of the war on a secret mission. While the Great Fleet was assembling, he had taken a small team of volunteers on a journey to the center of the galaxy, to the hegemony council chambers themselves. The council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years from their fortress station at the galactic core. It was the most heavily defended location in known space, protected by energy shields that could stop entire fleets. But Morrison didn't attack the defenses. Instead, he did something that no civilized species would ever consider. He flew his ship directly into the station's reactor core and detonated a weapon that human scientists had developed in their darkest laboratories. The Explosion destroyed the council chambers and killed every member of the hegemony leadership. More importantly, it sent a message that echoed across the galaxy. Nowhere was safe from human vengeance. Admiral Zethkri died still trying to understand what had happened. His last thought was a realization that came too late. Humanity had never intended to fight a defensive war. From the beginning, they had been planning to destroy the hegemony completely. The battle for Earth ended with the complete destruction of the Great Fleet. 2,000 alien warships had been reduced to wreckage floating in space. The survivors limped back to their home systems with tales of human savagery that spread panic throughout the galaxy. But Admiral Chen knew the war wasn't over yet. With the Hegemony Council dead and their fleets destroyed, the galaxy was in chaos. Hundreds of species that had been enslaved for millennia were rising up against their alien overlords. Trade routes were collapsing. Entire civilizations were falling apart. "What are your orders, Admiral?" asked Commander Park as they surveyed the wreckage of the alien fleet. Sarah Chen stood at the window of her command center, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so peaceful. "We rebuild," she said, "but we rebuild it our way." The Terran Compact was established 6 months later. Unlike the hegemony, it wasn't based on conquest and slavery. Instead, it offered a simple deal to every species in the galaxy: live free or die free, but live as equals. Many alien civilizations chose to join the Compact. They had seen what happened to those who threatened humanity, and they decided that cooperation was preferable to extinction. Others chose to remain independent, and humanity respected that choice as long as they caused no trouble. But some alien species made the mistake of thinking that humanity's victory over the hegemony had been a fluke. They tried to rebuild the old system of conquest and slavery, believing that humans would eventually grow tired of fighting. They learned that humans never grew tired of fighting for freedom. The galaxy settled into a new equilibrium. Humanity didn't rule like the hegemony had ruled. They didn't demand tribute or slaves. They didn't force their culture on other species. But they made it very clear that any attempt to recreate the old system would be met with immediate and overwhelming force. Admiral Chen's final log entry, recorded 5 years after the destruction of the Great Fleet, became the founding document of the new galactic order. They expected surrender. We gave them war. They demanded submission. We gave them destruction. They threatened our freedom. We gave them extinction. Let this be recorded for all time. Humanity bows to no one. We stand as equals among the stars, or we stand alone. But we will always stand free. The memorial wall in the Terran Defense Force headquarters lists the names of every human who died in the war. At the top, in letters carved from metal taken from alien wreckage, are the words that had started it all. Malin Labe. Come and take them. The galaxy had learned that some species would rather die than kneel, and in learning that lesson, they had discovered something that the hegemony had forgotten in their thousands of years of conquest. Freedom, once tasted, can never be taken away by force. The stars belong to everyone now, but they would always remember who had made that possible. Humanity had delivered their answer to the galaxy's bullies, and that answer was written in fire across 1,000 worlds: never again.